In my last episode, I showcased Village Homes and claimed that it's a permaculture urbanist community. But the question is, should permaculture urbanism include anything like what you see in this picture? No, not the tiger, not the brush piles, the cul-de-sac. When I made a toss-off comment about why Village Homes chose cul-de-sacs, it triggered a few card-carrying urbanists to comment about why these are such a terrible travesty. So I thought I'd take the opportunity to discuss why we need permaculture urbanism, why we need Edenicity, and what should and shouldn't be a part of each of these. Welcome to Edenicity, best practices for sustainably abundant cities. Why do we need permaculture and urbanism to get together? Two words: land use. By occupying half the land on Earth, human beings have wiped out more than half the life on Earth. But 57% of us live in cities on just 3% of the land. So from a design perspective, we have to ask the question, is it possible to restructure how we live to use less land and restore the lost half of life on Earth? Permaculture offers hope in the form of a layered ecological home and farm design system that has yields that have been proven since antiquity to be more than 10 times higher than large-scale mechanized agriculture. So with permaculture, we can shrink our land use. Meanwhile, urbanism concerns human-centered design of large-scale systems such as energy, transport, water, and recreation in cities. Edenicity, then, is a car-free design system to merge permaculture and urbanism. Its goal? To free up land and restore the lost half of life on Earth. As a bonus, as we get into the design details of merging permaculture and urbanism, we discover a lifestyle of much greater convenience, safety, health, and affordability. Okay, now that we know what we're talking about, let's get into those cul-de-sac. Yes, cul-de-sac, not cul-de-sac, because it's French. The question is, can these be part of permaculture? Cul-de-sac are loathed by most urbanists. First of all, because they massively expand the trip length from one point to another. In this photo, there's two cul-de-sac, very close together, but positioned in such a way that if you had to take a carload from point A to point B, you might have to drive around a very long block to get there. Also with cul-de-sac, there's fewer alternate routes, which means that there's more possibility to have traffic jams. They can be notoriously confusing to navigate. And a very common criticism of cul-de-sac is that they're selfish. They only benefit the four houses that are located around the actual circle. And let me start there. Cul-de-sac is not about a sense of place for those four or so houses. It's about surviving cars. That's right, cul-de-sac are primarily a means of traffic calming that defend against through traffic where detached houses and cars are the norm. For example, I used to live in this pass-through neighborhood in Bloomington, Indiana. Indiana University was on the left and Interstate to the right. Traffic would come blazing off the interstate, down Eastgate Lane, along Hillsdale, and fly through the two intersections that I've highlighted. There were fatal car crashes with pedestrians and bicyclists in these intersections before and after I lived in the neighborhood. When I was involved in the neighborhood association and creating an environmentally themed neighborhood plan together with the city, we spent a lot of time trying to figure out how to calm the raging traffic that would fly through the neighborhood, using it as a shortcut when traffic backed up elsewhere. As long as we have detached houses and cars, there will be demand for traffic calming, and in many cases, when people are not aware of other options, they will choose cul-de-sac. By contrast, street grids are loved by many urbanists. These make for much easier navigation because there's no dead ends. Small rectangular blocks improve walkability because there's no long detours. And the combination of the grid and the small size of the blocks makes the traffic pattern well ventilated, resulting in fewer traffic jams, more choices, and easier evacuation and emergency access. Now, not every urbanist loves the grid. J.H. Crawford of Carfree Cities fame much preferred a more organic street layout, but there's a lot to be said for the grid, and it makes for an easy starting point in city design. Now, where you have cars, there are more modern means of traffic calming. Narrow streets, roundabouts, curb extensions, as pictured here in Columbus, Ohio, that shorten the distance that pedestrians have to walk through traffic to get to the next block. Raised pedestrian crossings, where you don't step down to cross the street, but instead cars have to drive over a speed hump where the crosswalk is to cross the intersection. These have proven much safer than the step-down designs for crosswalks throughout North America. But Village Homes was built in 1975, and cul-de-sac were one of the few traffic calming tools available at the time. Do you see how long that street is that connects to the cul-de-sac by the yellow arrow? All of the houses on that street benefit from having that street not go through and connect to another arterial on the left side. The purpose of the cul-de-sac is to provide traffic calming for all of the houses along that narrow street and throughout the neighborhood. Now, if that were the end of the story, all the other urbanist objections would be pretty disqualifying. But Village Homes has at least one more mode of transit, and it is designed in a very different way. The bike paths are well connected internally to the neighborhood and externally to Davis. Here's what I'm talking about. This is from a paper that I'll link in the description. See the link below, and while you're there, go ahead and tap that like button and subscribe if you see that button too. Anyway, in this map, the dashed lines along the periphery and through the neighborhood are bike paths, and they connect to the town of Davis at all of these external points here at the periphery of the neighborhood. So in this sense, the neighborhood is well ventilated. There's many ways to enter and leave the neighborhood, and even to go all the way through it by bicycle. Here's how it relates to the Davis bike loop. You can see that the loop passes right through the edge of the neighborhood. And here's kind of a fun view of the same map. So the big question is, should permaculture urbanism have cul-de-sac? Should Edenicity have cul-de-sac? I think at this point, maybe you've seen enough to guess at an answer, but here we go. Edenicity has no cul-de-sac because it is car-free, multifamily, mixed-use, and transit-oriented. So there's no threat from fast-moving car traffic through any given neighborhood. And by the way, if you're curious about how moving, service, and emergency vehicles would work in Edenicity, I did an episode on that you can check out here. Now, I need to point out that this is a schematic view of Edenicity. So the hexagonal grid would be rail lines connecting cities. The tiny squares are the cities themselves. Then it expands it in a progression so that you can see the arrangement of tree belts and transit lines that are on constant contour, which in a flat landscape could be a perfect grid, but in most cities would give you a fairly wavy grid. So again, this is just a very schematic way to show you the pattern of land use and how the different uses would scale within the city. Now, is Village Homes an Edenicity development? No. It precedes Edenicity by at least 50 years. However, from what I've seen in my brief visit back in 2017, it is permaculture urbanism, because the food, water, housing, transportation, recreation, and energy systems were designed together for the entire neighborhood. Let me break that down just a little bit. The neighborhood has food forests in people's backyards. It has a large vineyard. It has hundreds of fruit and nut trees throughout the property. The housing is laid out east to west for maximum solar gain in the winter. Many of the houses, which you can see in the background, have solar panels on their roofs. The transportation system favors bicycles over cars. The recreation areas are shared. And the result is a neighborhood that started out very down market and in some cases do it yourself, and has over 5 decades become some of the most valuable real estate per square foot in the city of Davis. Now, to qualify as an Edenicity development, and yes, developers are starting to ask about this, it needs to be car-free, which Village Homes isn't, mixed use, which it is, multifamily, which only makes up a tiny fraction of the housing stock in Village Homes, transit-oriented, which it definitely is, because I was able to take the bus to and from the airport straight to Village Homes, and it needs to produce its own food and energy, which Village Homes does, but in Edenicity, we would really focus on this and do it in a much more organized way. Now, if you want to learn more about Edenicity, you can download the reference design from the description below. That's the little link that says more. You can learn how transportation works in Edenicity from this episode here. And thanks as always to the wonderful patrons who support this work. Take care, stay green, see you next time.